Well, hey everybody, it's Nathan Ott, Chief Polisher here at the GC Index, and we have another one of our exciting impact webinars to show to you. Today we are joined by Water for People, who are a fabulous organisation that work around the world ensuring that everybody in the world has fresh water, something that many of us take for granted, but obviously it's somewhat a luxury for billions of people in the world. We're joined today by Eleanor Allen, who is the Chief Executive for Water for People, and as you will see, she's very much a game changer playmaker by proclivity, and also by the HR manager Mike Ksenyak, who is also to talk to us about how they're aligning their people within Water for People, as well as the impact in the programs they have around the world. So we aim to today just introduce to you a bit more about this fabulous organisation, and as well how they have been maximising their impact through their people using the GC Index as a platform for that. So what I suppose is best is that many of you would not have heard of Water for People, and to say it's a fabulous organisation that is really sort of changing the way that fresh water and sanitation is given to around the world. Some figures that astounded me really is that actually there's 2.1 billion people in the world today without clean water, and we're going to get Eleanor to talk a bit more about that in a moment. Water for People are somewhat of a game-changing organisation. They have a game-changing ambition, and that's to ensure that there's fresh water for everyone forever. And certainly Eleanor will talk a bit more about that. Now, with the GC Index, we're going to explain a bit more how we've been implementing that in the last year. Very much a top-down approach, looking at the leadership, the corporate HQ, and then how to maximise impact in country programs, which then is moving into a phase of what actually Mike was one of the first people to coin this phrase around, and many other organisations are using this notion of talking GCology. So it's that common language for impact and contribution, which is being underpinned by the GC Index. So lots to get in. Please do ask the questions on the panel below. There are a couple of polls, but should be a fun session. So enough from me for now. And Eleanor, would you please sort of give us a frame for what Water for People is and the sort of mission that you're focused on, please?
I sure will. Thank you, Nathan. So to start with, the reason why Water for People even exists, as Nathan mentioned, we are, as some of you may not know, living in a global water and sanitation crisis. Now, for those of us that don't think about getting our water, making our coffee, or taking a shower, or where we go to the bathroom, we don't even know what it's like not to have these luxuries in our life. But the people we work with, which are generally people who live on less than $2 a day in Africa, Latin America, and India, this is something that takes up a lot of their time and energy because it's something they don't have access to. So to put it in perspective, 2.1 billion people, that's more close to a third of the world, and 4.5 billion without a toilet, that's more than half. That's a lot of people. And so we try to remain grounded in the fact that this is the way most of the world lives, and we're trying to improve the quality of life through our mission. So we'll go to the next slide. So the global water and sanitation crisis is why we exist. And our mission is about water and sanitation for everyone forever, as Nathan also mentioned. And what this means is that we try to get services to everyone in a geographic area, and we want those services to last forever. That's the really hard part, because it has to do with people and a lot of the things we'll talk about today. The everyone part is about building the infrastructure, but water and sanitation infrastructure needs lots of love and care to keep going so that your water keeps on flowing and your toilet keeps on flushing. So that's how we get to our mission, which is also our name of our impact model, Everyone Forever. So on the next slide, This is where we work. Currently, we are working in 5 countries in Latin America, in Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua in Central America, Bolivia and Peru in South America, and in East Africa, Uganda, Rwanda, and Malawi. And in India, we're specifically working in 3 states in West Bengal, Bihar, and Maharashtra. So this is, in one slide, the why, the how, and the what we do. We've talked about some of this. So the why is starting with the global water and sanitation crisis, but why we do our work is really because we want sustained social progress. And social progress in our context is about giving people the ability to get an education, which means giving them time back from fetching water and looking for a toilet to go to school, giving people the ability to earn a living. Again, it has to do with time and quality of life. If they're not looking for water or taking care of their sick families, people can work. And then improving health, which is a direct benefit of having safe water and proper sanitation. And when you have education, health, and a job, well, then you have social progress in communities. And we've seen communities change dramatically once they have water and sanitation services. How we work is just go back for a moment, Nathan. The Everyone Forever model, we have what we call the 4 forces. This starts with the community force. The community says, we want change, we want better life, really. And they usually go to the mayor, and the mayor is often our partner. We always work with government, especially when developing water infrastructure, because those become municipal assets. And we partner with government. Government always co-finances part of the capital phase and becomes a partner for life as things go into the forever phase. We build the water utilities to keep the infrastructure running. The technical force is really our background. We come from water engineering. I'm an engineer, and we have deep roots in the engineering industry in the US and Canada, but we also now have our engineers in country. So that's part of our sustainability model, really growing the talent in our countries. And then market forces come into play by creating jobs. We want to create as many jobs as we can in water and sanitation to create water professionals in the countries where we work. So those are 4 forces of Everyone Forever. And then what makes us different and special is the co-investing. We don't give anything away. We require our partners in government to co-invest in what we're building, so then they feel the ownership. And we know this works better because we didn't always do this, but we've changed our model to really focus on the co-investment and then building capacity. And this is a lot of education on our team trying to pass the technology for operations and maintenance and health and hygiene, and we know that this is key to sustainability and keeping the systems running. So now the next one. So this is our strategy for the next 4 years. We're 1 year in a high-level graphic here, but this is really what we're focused on every day. So the base is our first strategic goal is proof, and this is the everyday work we're doing of building the infrastructure and building utilities. We're working towards serving 7 million people in 50 districts across our 9 countries. This has given us credibility and influence at the national level in many of our countries, and we're specifically focused on scaling nationally through what we call our advisory services, and this is in Uganda, Rwanda, Bolivia, and Honduras. We have a very special place because of our credibility in our districts to help craft the master plan to get to full coverage for the whole countries with the Ministry of Infrastructure, the Ministry of Water, or Environment, depending on which country you're in. And this is great, because this is exactly how we want to get leverage the knowledge and the skills and have others replicate the model, so we don't have to do all the work. We're not a big organization, but we have big aspirations, and we want to make a big impact. So when we can work with national level government, we can impact a lot more people. And then also our scaling in this new strategy is really, again, about growing businesses, especially in sanitation, when a lot of the services are not municipal services. They're private services because people aren't connected to sewers. So if you can imagine that you have a country home and you have a outhouse and it fills up, you have to call someone to empty that. That's a business. So creating businesses to help sell toilets, to empty the pits, and to treat the sludge properly. These are great business opportunities and help solve the sanitation crisis at the same time. And then lastly, the blue part is global leadership. And that's about partnering and sharing our knowledge and really focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, which in our case is Sustainable Development Goal number 6, sustainable water and sanitation for all, very simple. But we want to be visible and be able to have others use our knowledge. We have no intellectual property per se. We just want to move faster to solve the crisis faster. And we do this through partnerships. And it's about being visible and a leader in our space. And then the bottom, want to mention the foundation of all our strategies really dependent on our people. And we'll be talking a lot about that today. Making sure we have a steady revenue source, which we've been fortunate. We work really hard at that. That's hard to, every day is a fundraising day for us, and that keeping that constant to keep our programs without changing the programs due to changes in cash flow, keeping our reputation stellar, and having the right business systems and tools to do our work. And lastly, this is my last slide before I turn over to Mike. We are recognized for the work we do. We're a leader in the water sector. We call it the water sanitation hygiene, the WASH sector. But we're also recognized outside our water world by others, and here particularly the Skoll Foundation and the Schwab Foundation for social entrepreneurship. We won awards for both those foundations about being working in the social entrepreneur space, taking our idea and changing the system and where we work. So changing our system is getting water services that last. So it's not the perpetual breaking down of infrastructure and someone else comes around. It's really changing the whole system and where we work to keep those services going. And that's how we've been recognized as a social entrepreneur in our space. And then the last one is a charity navigator. We're very proud of this because it's hard to do this. This is I believe it's in the US, the rating system for the best charities for those who want to give donations. Getting a 4-star rating is the highest rating you can get, and we've had it now for 14 years. So we're in the 1% of the charities that can say that. And that's about being efficient, using our resources wisely, not having too much spent on overhead, but really focus on our programs, but having the robust business infrastructure needed to actually do the work and use our donors' money well. So wanted to mention that as well. And now I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, Eleanor, just before we do hand over to Mike, thank you for that. I mean, clearly big goals, big aspirations, big mission. I mean, you've spent your life in the corporate world and moved to the third sector, the charity sector, for the last couple of years. What have been the biggest challenges for you? Just quickly, what will be the biggest challenges that you see to getting to everyone forever?
Yeah, so as Nathan is alluding to, we've known each other for a long time. Before Water for People, I was working in consulting, in for-profit water consulting all around the world. So my biggest shift personally was really going to an organization that's mission-driven. Yes, I always worked with people who love water. I've always done that my whole life. But it's different when your mission is specifically about improving the quality of life and changing entire communities versus getting a project done. And I worked on mega programs. It was also a change. I worked on big infrastructure for Thames Water or Denver Water. So it's going into the small scale infrastructure. To me, it was now I'm working on a lot of smaller projects under a program umbrella, but the impact is significantly bigger. We were trained really well as engineers to design infrastructure that nobody would see, that nobody would smell for wastewater, nobody knew existed. And it's different when you go to a community and you're like, where do you get your water and how are we going to make it safe, and how are we going to help improve this community. And to me, that's been a lot more rewarding. And that's been my big shift, going to Water for People.
Okay, thank you. So Mike, big mission. There is 2.1 billion people around the world without water, and then even more without sanitation. Your role as the HR manager there is to ensure that all of the people that you have within the headquarters there at Denver, and then equally in your regional programs, and then in the communities. Just talk to us a bit about your approach to aligning the people to that vision and mission.
Yeah, that's right. And so essentially how this all came to be is when I first joined with Water for People a little over 2 years ago, I was working with our Chief People Officer, Sarah Orens, to try and identify training and development opportunities for our employees, both here at Denver and then in the global program offices, where we could develop leadership and just build ourselves up as teams and eventually as an organization. And we tried a number of different opportunities and different training programs. We were doing some different models here at the Denver office to see if they would take. And some were good. We weren't exactly hitting the mark. As we were looking for more, Eleanor approached Sarah and I and said, well, I know this guy, Nathan, and he has this training and development program that he does. Why don't we look into more about what that is and see if it might help us out? So we did. We connected with Nathan. We learned about the GC Index methodology, and the three of us took the assessment and learned about our proclivities. And personally, I was quite impressed. The thing I really like about the GC Index is that it's a simple setup. You have the 5 proclivities that people are comprised of to varying degrees. And the way that we show up to do our jobs, the way we show up to interact with people is based on those proclivities. And so I thought this would be a really great thing to try and do in our Denver office with our employees. And so Nathan came here and we, with the senior leadership team and our Denver employee population, we implemented a GC Index session. And it really resonated with people. I think in a large part, people were craving this kind of discussion. And so, you know, essentially, the GC Index set a foundation of a common language so we could speak about our proclivities, not in the way of strengths and weaknesses, but in the way of how do we best show up to do our work, and in what ways do we naturally collaborate with people. And so that's really set the stage for success for us here.
Yeah, and Mike, it's probably useful if we just, because not everyone that's on the webinar today will be familiar with the GC Index, but it's worthwhile just quickly exploring that. I think for those that don't know about the GC Index, it is a language and a framework for aligning everybody to transformational change. We live in a world where everyone's looking to make sort of, we have to innovate or die. We're in a digital world. We're in a world where we have to keep changing, and that can be very threatening for everybody in the organization if they don't know how to make their impact. And I think certainly with such a bold ambition as to transforming how the world has fresh water, people certainly want to know how they make an impact to that. So I think, Mike, what we decided to do with Mike was to and with Sarah, the chief people officer, was actually look at a top-down approach initially to get that language. And we looked at the senior leadership team. That in itself was quite new for the journey. So we wanted to make sure that there was a language from the top down that the leadership knew where they were playing their role from Eleanor downwards, and then how that permeated across the organization. Now, as those that know the GC Index, we look at things from an individual perspective. There is the individual profiles, but they do roll up to either a team or a company profile. And thank you to Eleanor and Mike. You don't mind us sort of showing this. This was the profile collectively of all of the Denver HQ, and it was interesting if you remember. I think certainly the notion was they felt they were a very collaborative organization, but I think we quickly recognized that actually they were very much doing organization. They were very much felt they were in silos, which you can sort of whether finance was talking to marketing and programs, and very sort of siloed in their activities, albeit a very collaborative organization socially. So I think certainly one of the key areas was meaningful collaboration, and what does that look like? And I think that's when you started to spark the conversation around all of the frame talking GCology. I think you had an example of a finance department, Mike. They were talking about this needs to be implemented, no, it needs to be polished, or we've got to stop polishing this, we've got to get it out. And
that's right.
You recall that example?
Yes, I do. And so our finance team had been fairly new, a lot of newer members to the team. And when we looked at that team, there was a strong pull between people who wanted to implement and close the monthly records and to prepare for the audit and to just execute on all of these tasks that had to get done. And then other members of the finance team, for example, the controller, was really interested in making sure that everything was done perfectly and to the T. And so we were able to talk about this in the terminology of GCology and talking about you're implementing and you're polishing and how can we collaborate to find the middle space here. Stop polishing while I'm trying to execute. And yeah, that's one example.
Yeah, and I think it got them both home in good time on a Friday evening where they could have been debating for ages, for hours. But also the point around the collaboration, the playmaker score being sort of that sort of relatively low was a bit of a surprise, I think, originally, because you are a very friendly and collaborative organisation on the surface. You do lots of things socially. I mean, you were explaining about there's always something going on. I've been to your offices, they're fantastic. There's always something going on. But that collaboration part was probably twofold. It was, we enjoy each other's company, but then we go back to our individual departments and don't necessarily collaborate. So I think we unpicked a lot of that. But also, I think, and we'll talk a bit more as we're moving forwards to the next stage, but the collaboration, a meaningful collaboration with the organisation outside of Denver is important to you as well, isn't it? I think that's something we spoke about. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yes, that's right. And so what we'd like to do is globalize the GC index at Water for People. And so the senior leadership team in the Denver office was the first step to that. And before taking it to our country programs, what we've also done is taken a deeper dive into the individual teams here. As you referenced, we're siloed, and so we've been doing some work within the teams to first talk about what are the main proclivities that, for example, on the finance team, that the 6 members of that team show up with. We have implementers, we have polishers, we have a strategist. And so how can they best work together knowing their proclivities? We've also looked at how can the finance team work with the global programs team based on the proclivities that we see. We've looked at aggregate profiles for the individual teams. And so we're really analyzing our dynamics and our relationships at different levels here. And as I said, it's really resonating with people. So we know we're on the right track and that this is being well received. The third step that was referenced earlier is how do we take this globally? Because really what we'd like to do is find a model of training and development that reaches all employees of Water for People. And so what we'd like to do is take that to our regions, and we have Latin America, Africa, and Asia. The region we're going to focus on in 2018 is Africa in our 3 country programs, so Malawi, Uganda, and Rwanda. And this is it's a big project and a big undertaking, and we want to make sure that we do it intentionally and carefully, so everyone's on board with us. And so as much as we'd love to implement and have all of our country programs be speaking GCology, we're going to phase it out to make sure the foundation is set. And so before I speak a little bit more to that, I wanted to just talk about a few highlights of our Africa country programs. Nathan, it's great, you can go to that Uganda slide. And so in Uganda, in 2017, one milestone that was reached was that a water management model has been established. We had started in Uganda with 4 decentralized operators, and this wasn't very profitable and it wasn't very organized. So we hired consultants to develop a new model with 1 private operator who had control over all the systems in Kamwenge. And now there's a contract between the Midwestern umbrella and the Tech Power utilities, and there's a clarifying role for national water in Uganda, which is a great success for us. And these slides just show some brief statistics. So in Uganda, we have 1 Everyone Forever district. And within that district, we're working with 617 communities, 339 schools, and 48 clinics. And actually, those are the characteristics of how we define everyone when we're reaching the communities, the schools, and the clinics.
Just a commentary on what it means to get service to 367 people. When we design, this is a 10-year program, so when we go community by community, we always design the system with the community. Some communities only want community wells. Some want, in this, even in Kamwenge, where it's very poor, they still want household connections. And then sometimes it's a community kiosk. So we typically do all three, depending on how the houses are laid out and how, if people want a household connection, they have to pay from the main line to their home, and they'll have a meter, and their service is metered, and they pay by the water they use. But people value that service, they'll pay for it. They all have cell phones even out in Kamwenge. And so when this is a service that's reliable and safe, people pay for it. I think that's often a misconception about, especially working in Africa, oh, no one can pay, it's really poor. It is really poor, but people can pay. If it's appropriately priced and if it's a service they value, it becomes a priority in their life and keeps them healthy. So this is part of what we've seen firsthand in Kamwenge. And as we go to across the district, it is working really well to develop these utilities and have the variety of service offerings, the type of service people want in their homes or they're just in their community.
And what does it mean? I mean, this is a great example. You've got a number of these examples. What does it mean, Mike or Eleanor, to have the connectedness of this program back into Denver and vice versa? I mean, because that's often the challenge with, you know, a more disparate organization. What's the value of having these guys on the ground talking a similar language and understanding as those back in HQ?
Sure, and that's the framework that really we like. So, you know, the Denver office exists solely to support our country programs around the world doing the water and sanitation work with our communities that we work with. And so, you know, to make sure that we're supporting the country programs and that the communication is working effectively, I think the foundation of that is having a common language and a model to speak about what we're doing. The GC Index provides really, again, simple terms to use to really to effectively communicate about complex things. And so as we roll this out in Africa, we'll be able to talk about our proclivities, and we'll be able to talk about how we can improve relationships and improve the way we discuss a project or a grant, or maybe we're preparing for a country visit and we're having board members come or donors. We could talk more effectively about planning for that, and if there's challenges, we can speak about it in terms of the GC Index terminology.
Another example would be in our knowledge management. We're learning a lot in Kamwenge, but people working in Blantyre might not know about what we're doing in Kamwenge, even though it's kind of next door, at least it's on the continent. But having the ability to share that knowledge in a way that's accessible and approachable. So to do a knowledge management platform, for example, we need the game changer to develop that, what that would look like, and then we need the implementers to get the knowledge in there, and we need the polishers to make it so it's, you know, usable and people want to actually use it, so all that effort doesn't go to waste. So that's another thing we're trying to do in the regional. We do knowledge sharing in the regions, and then we do knowledge sharing between the regions, which becomes a lot more interesting because Africa and India and Latin America are very different, but yet we still have the same model that we're using, and it's implemented in appropriate ways for those regions. But there's a lot of learning we can do between all our countries, and that's another thing we're working on. And that all is based in communication again, and ability to work together.
Yeah, and a lot of our other clients in the more the corporate world, they talk about deploying resources at the right time for the right impact at the right time. I mean, again, that's something that obviously when we're looking about rolling out into sort of the people strategy into these regions, it's that even in, you know, more remote parts of the world, we're applying that right time, right impact. So individuals can maximise the resources. Mike, did you want to continue a bit more about the Africa program? Then we've got some questions for you. We're getting lots of questions coming in, so we might cut the slides and move into the questions. I've got Emma with me. We've got quite a few of them, haven't we? Questions. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to pick sort of a few of them, and then we'll go to questions in a couple of minutes? Yeah. Mike, do you want to finish off on the Africa? I've got some more slides.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great, and I can make this quicker. If you go to the next slide, please.
Yeah.
Oh, so another one of our country programs is Rwanda, and here are some of those statistics as well. In Rwanda, what we wanted to highlight is related to scale. And so in 2017, we finished the first system in our new Everyone Forever district of Gicumbi. And we're working with Agenda for Change to work in a total of 5 districts in Rwanda. We're finalizing tools for implementation of the Everyone Forever model, and we're taking a district-wide approach with this in those 5 districts that we aim to work with. And this includes monitoring and costing tools. So that's one highlight from Rwanda, and then I can speak again to Malawi if you progress 2 more slides.
Yep.
So Malawi, the big focus here is sanitation. And in Champananga, which is a traditional authority in the Everyone Forever district of Chikwawa, there's a population of about 100,000 people. And this was declared open defecation free, which was a huge milestone. It's a lot of people and a big behavioral change for communities.
Yep.
The reason we want to highlight this is because in 2015, Champananga experienced extreme flooding, which was devastating to the region and destroyed many of the latrines. And without the help of Water for People and without the help of other organizations, the communities rebuilt their toilets because they wanted that sanitation system and those water systems that badly. So it just goes to show that the work we're doing is impactful and that it really does carry through to the community. Natural disaster occurs and they rebuild back to where they had taken themselves. So that's the work I wanted to highlight in Africa.
Yeah.
And perfect. I believe those are
jumping about on the slides. Sorry, I was a bit distracted. Lots of questions.
Sure.
Questions coming through. So let's just sort of finish in terms of working with the GC index. So I mean, these are some of the highlights that we discussed about. Always, to develop that common language and contribution framework. I think the providing a framework to manage healthy conflict. That's something with the GC index that comes through. It's conflict. We can't have change without conflict. So it's making sure we manage that healthy conflict. Just Eleanor, just before we sort of cut to the questions, how have you found the process working with the G6 for your team as a leader? I know we've had a number of conversations about it. Is there anything you want to pick up just quickly?
Yeah, I'd like to build on your comment about the silos. I mean, that has been a challenge for us and reflected in our overall GC index of us as an organization so far. So trying to break down those barriers or those walls of the silos is a challenge because that's human nature, because that's the people we have right now. So also one thing we've been doing is because we're small, change and any transition type of thing has a ripple effect through the organization. And if it's not done well, it creates inefficiencies. So we want to try to be as efficient as we can because we have our resources we need to manage and we need to get our work done. We have a very aggressive schedule in our work in our districts. So when we started to get to know the GC index, it really helped us reposition people in their roles and when people were having conflict, started going to the root cause of why. Well, we found some people were in the wrong job. So they were just unhappy. They were doing polishing work when they really wanted to be game changer, or they really were a game changer. So we took a look and moved some people around. And actually, we were reflecting on this yesterday. There's several that I can think of. The one that I'm thinking of right now that I mentioned was putting this person into more of a game changer role. Totally changed her outlook. She'd been in like 5 different jobs. So that's one thing that's been really helpful for us to be aware of those things, to get people in the right role so people don't become disgruntled and leave or become ineffective or not productive in their roles. And then building these collaborative cross-departmental teams, trying to find ways. Sometimes we have to do that, but sometimes we create ways to do that to break down the silos. So one example is building a new external face for showing our impact metrics on the web. So we need a designer, and it's really marketing owns the project, but all the data comes from programs. Then we need someone to to strategize and like, this is how we got to get it done. Then we need a polisher to make it look nice. Well, I had a realization yesterday, that's actually behind schedule. So what is going on here? Well, the leader is a game changer. Like that person should be helping design, but not leading this project. So let's figure out, let's get like an implementer in there and get this thing.
Probably a relief for that person as well, actually. Probably a relief. Probably a relief for that person not to have to lead it. Oh.
Yeah, but it's so funny. He's like, of course it's behind schedule. So we have, we're continuing to learn, but the project is going really well. It's just, we can continue to refine people's roles based on how we know they work. So those are the type of things, and our change will be continuous. So continuing to be better at this is in our best interest.
Yeah, that's good. And we speak about those who it's focused on tangible outcomes. It's correct, those behaviours that actually manifest into tangible outcomes, how they show up at work to actually get stuff done or impact. And then at the end, it really is how everyone can contribute to the process. Everyone forever. We talk about creativity and game-changing ideas might reside within the individual, but it does take everyone's impact to make that transformational change. So both in the organisation and outside the organisation. That leads me on to Emma's here showing me lots of questions. Shall I read them out, or can you?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, go on, Emma. Can you all hear Emma? Is that okay? Yeah. Go on, Emma.
Yeah.
One that I think you may have answered, but it's probably important touching on is, what does the abbreviation GC mean? Oh,
that's right. So GC stands for game changing. So we believe there's this myth in the modern world that we get a couple of people we call game changers. They can be Steve Jobs or Oprah Winfrey lookalikes, and we get them into our organisation and everything's okay. No, as I've said, not everyone is a game changer, but everyone can make a game-changing contribution. So the GC stands for game-changing, because the GC is about creating game-changing impact teams and cultures. So that's what that stands for. Thank you. There's one there I was trying to lead in because I saw a question. It's for Eleanor and Mike. How can somebody as a professional help contribute to everyone forever? How can professionals who are not in your organisation help join your cause or help impact your cause?
We have several ways to connect to Water for People if you're not one of our employees in Malawi or Rwanda or Denver, for example, or any other country. So we have 50 committees that are volunteer committees. They're across North America. Anyone could join to be part of this, and the purpose of the committees is they're typically rooted in the water sector, so professionals working in water but want to have a global lens on their work. So they do advocacy work for us, they help raise awareness on the global water and sanitation crisis. They do fundraisers for us, small scale fundraisers, events, galas, auctions, beer fest, wine fest, those kind of small events. And for a long time, this was our only fundraising, and this is, thousands of people doing this for us. Then we have a group we call the World Water Corps, which are the technical volunteers, or the volunteers that actually do work in our countries. So those World Water Corps assignments, we have a distribution list, and if people are interested in actually doing work, some are in country, some are desktop studies, and these are typically things above and beyond that our teams locally can handle. Examples would be really making our GIS mapping more sophisticated, or advancing our arsenic removal water treatment when our engineers need a little bit of help on more advanced technologies, or membrane supports for sanitation technologies, or water resources, or different things on database management, like more of the business structure. We're now developing, we have volunteers helping develop an advisory framework that we can leverage our skills as advisors. So some are technical, but some are just business. And anything else? Those are the two main.
No, that sounds great.
The two main ways.
Well, you guys are too polite, but simplistically, you can become a donor as well, and
Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Always accepting donations. 24/7.
You can get there. You can go purchase a water for people water bottle. They're really cool. They're really great. And you know, if you do donate, you might get invited to some of the cool parties. One of the donors and partnership is Absolute Vodka, for example. So there are some cool organizations that you can get involved with as well. So
yeah, we do have quite a few corporate partners, and we do have a lot of individual donors, and we really rely on that funding every day. So thank you for that reminder, Nathan.
Okay, just so we know, yeah, just I'm not being too sure. Emma, any more? There's a number of questions. Have we got time? We have
got time. Leading on from that, Eleanor, a couple of people are interested in how much you're relying on investment from government and sponsors, and sort of what the ratio is. So I guess how much support you get from individual sponsors versus that from government.
From local government. So when we talk about our co-financing of local government, 35% of the capital investment is paid by government. So this would be we'll just use Rwanda for this example. We get investment from the district government and also from the national government in Rwanda. Most countries, it's just the district government. So if we're doing a $10 million construction project, they'll put in 3.5 million. So that's significant. That's a big deal for us, and that really helps the sustainability of the projects.
Brilliant. And Eleanor, just again, I guess another one for you is is Water for People and partnering with any other non-for-profits in Africa?
We partner with many other nonprofits. There are some that are local to the countries where we work, but some that people on the call might know. We have a partnership with WaterAid, IRC out of the Netherlands. In Africa, also World Vision we work with. We have some International Lifeline, the Rotary International, a bunch that I'm not remembering. And also some that are local you wouldn't have heard of. Like some that you wouldn't have heard of that are just in that the small town we work in, for example. So that's part of what I do, is continuously try to find new partners to collaborate with, because that really helps us increase our impact.
Okay, good.
Brilliant. There's something here around the model that you were talking about, impact, and I'm hoping that I'm reading this correctly from Mary. But it's how has this changed, or has this changed, I think, how individual team performance is measured. So when you were talking about sort of the framework that you're using and the model in terms of impact, how it's whether it's changed how individual performance is measured.
Maybe for you, Mike, is that a question? Did you get that?
Yeah, I think so. So I think in a couple ways. So one way that this has been changing how teams function is that it's opening up new discussions in terms of support and collaboration. For example, the most recent team that we worked with was the regional finance team. So this included our CFO, our controller, and then we have 3 regional finance and admin managers in Latin America, Africa, and India. And they all completed the GC Index questionnaire, learned about their proclivities, and then while they were here a few weeks ago, we held a session to talk about what are their proclivities and what does this team look like. So this is our global finance team, essentially, our leadership team for finance. And we have a very strong strategist, we have a couple polishers, and then we have a game changer. And so, I mean, what does that look like? People are going to want to have really perfect work. There's going to be somebody creating new ideas in terms of how we manage global finances. Perhaps that affects compensation. Perhaps it looks at total compensation and benefits, a new way to do audits. And then we have a strategist, so who's going to keep us accountable for what we're doing and why we're doing it, who's going to make sure that from a global financial perspective that we're following process and that we're not jumping all over the place. In terms of how they're being evaluated, I'm not exactly sure for that team how that would translate yet, since there's newer members and we're kind of, I mean, this is all happening in real time. We're living it right now, and we're rolling this out as we speak. I think in the Denver office, it has helped influence our performance review process in terms of how we look at the way people do their jobs. And so, you know, everybody has key duties and responsibilities. Well, one thing that we've learned is that some people, based on their proclivities, their strong proclivities and their weaker proclivities, weren't necessarily in the right job, or maybe aspects of their job needed to be switched or modified. And so we've done some of that work. And there's, you know, different employees on the global programs team, on the finance team, who we've modified their job descriptions, and so now they're more effective in their roles and how they make a contribution to water for people. And our performance review process looks at that, looks at job duties and responsibilities. It looks at our own values and our vision, and it looks at our goals. And so what I'd like to do eventually is see how we can take the GC index and help it influence people's goal creation for the years, and how we look at what are not our main job duties, but the additional goals that we have, how that might correlate to the fact that I'm a game changer, but not necessarily a strategist. You know, what kind of goals can I help contribute to?
I think another thing that, as I'm listening to Mike, this is one tool in our toolkit. So we're combining getting to know people better and what they're good at and their strengths, along with evolving our own metrics for the organization. So we have a balanced scorecard. We have annual goals, quarterly goals, and key performance indicators for each of those goals. And then we have organizational priorities. So when we started the first balanced scorecard, we're now on the third one, it was, well, some people are like, well, I don't relate to any of this stuff. How does my job actually help, you know, especially here in Denver, we're kind of back office. How does it help the mission? And so people would just sit back and like, oh, I'm just going to do my thing. This doesn't apply to me. So we've evolved quite a bit. Well, it does apply to everyone, and figuring out how people can get plugged in to know how they fit in with the organization, increases engagement, and then also holds them accountable for making sure that they know what goals belong to them, or which ones they're working on, and how that does help the organization. And so part of getting to know what people are good at is finding the right goals for them that help the department, that help the organization meet its goals. So I think this is all one puzzle piece of the whole evolution of our culture and our ability to be more of continue to evolve to be a high-performing team.
About the global leadership model, I think that you were talking about at the beginning, Eleanor, and how and whether the relationship has changed between local teams and the leadership team.
The local team and the leadership team, local in our country versus leadership in Denver, is that the question?
That's right. Yeah. Has there been change?
I think, to me, this is one of my everyday tasks, is trying to make that gap get smaller, because we are far away, and we are, you know, we span across 11 countries. We have employees in the UK as well, and so we're a very virtual organization. So what had happened over time, so I have 2.5 years, some of my initial impressions were that we were very decentralized, in the sense that some of our operations were quite independent. So we had lost a bit of the common thread of what makes us Water for People as an organization. So what we've been trying really hard to do over the past couple of years is bring this closer. And this is really based on communication and understanding each other. Keep those unique things that make us special, but grow us together as a team, because those are all small teams, but if we're a bigger team, we're more powerful and more impactful. And so, for example, we had a country director meeting here a month ago in Denver. We brought the 9 country directors here, and it was really a week of training, but also the primary purpose was building trust and relationships and communication channels, so that they can also have a cohort between each other when they go back to their countries. And so it's about, this is really hard work, and having support and knowing you can ask questions, you don't know the answers, we have a culture of failing forward, we need to test and innovate in order to find the thing that works. And so being able to do that more frequently helps us move faster. So a lot of what we've been doing is trying to close that gap, and really getting to know, build the relationships and know ourselves, but know each other, helps us do that in a more effective way. I don't know, Mike's been part of this. Any other thoughts on that journey?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And you know, the more that we talk, and the more that we have challenging conversations and build relationships, it is making that gap smaller. And I've seen that progress over the last 2 years that I've been here. And, I really look forward to seeing it shrink even more because, this was the first time that I'd met all of our country directors, and, that brought the whole world a lot closer. And we were able to have conversations about, from my perspective, human resource issues and concerns and matters that are happening in the respective countries. And so now we're laying foundations. And one way the GC Index is helping us do that is it's providing that framework of language and of terminology. And so that is, as Eleanor said, one of the tools that's helping us guide, this uncharted territory of what we're doing.
Yep. And I think certainly I was going to say until my computer just give up. So unfortunately, we can't fast forward any more of the slides, which is to show you how you can donate to Water for People. But don't worry, we'll certainly get that through. Website is waterforpeople.org, and if you want to know more about the GC Index, it's thegcindex.com. But you're stuck with those good-looking boys, unfortunately, now for the rest of the webinar. Now, just what we've noticed, certainly, sort of me for closing with other people is that question around performance management. I've seen a lot. What we've spoken about, Mike, is a lot of that improvement of self-awareness and then in turn self-confidence in your people, particularly as what we've seen through that performance management process. And certainly, as Eleanor says, the GC Index isn't just the one thing; it's how it combines with everything that you're already doing. So it's additive, and it does that self-awareness and confidence has certainly been a big play. What does the next, just closing up, what does the next 12 months look like for Water for People? So we're going to come back and see you in 12 months' time, and I'm going to see you. We're going to Peru. I'm looking forward to that in September. So there'll be lots on the GC Index blogging about that. But certainly, if we were to come back in 12 months' time, what can people expect?
I'll answer first. I'll let Mike answer.
Sure.
But I also want to hear, Nathan, one closeout comment from you, because you've been here and you've known the organization and how it, your perspective on seeing our short evolution since you've gotten to know us. But one thing I wanted to mention that I hadn't is one of my other things coming here from the for-profit sector. I've had an amazing career of lots of investment in me, training me. So when I got here to nonprofit, one of the things I heard was, oh, we don't have money for training. Oh, we can't do that because we're a nonprofit. And I was like, no, wrong. How can we use our donors' money effective if we're not properly trained? So I think one of my learnings through this process is the self-awareness part, because if you have a cohort of people who've never had professional development, then they don't know what they don't know, and they're not self-aware, and they can't have a heart. It's managing self and then managing part of the team. What is your role, and how have you, continue to refine yourself as a professional and setting those goals. So that is a huge part of what we've been working on too. I mean, just goal setting. Some people are like, well, tell me what to do. Well, no, what do you want to do? And so that is a big journey we're on. Professional development is a huge thing we never even talked about a few years ago, but our whole global team is hungry for this. So I feel my personal duty to pay forward, because I've had amazing career development throughout my life, and Mike has too, and we like to brainstorm what we can give to our people and what we can help. And then there's the desires that are bubbling up from the teams themselves. So I think moving forward is really kind of filling those gaps of people's having career development plans, talking about that and trying to fulfill as best we can. We're small, we can't do everything, but we can always do more. And then really having that self-confidence and that self-awareness, because people become better no matter where they go. That is part of their personal toolkit. So I see that as our future as we continue to expose more of our employees to the GC Index, is really having that for them, but having that coupled with our vision for Water for People in the future.
Sounds good. And Mike, we'll give you the final word. We've got about a minute before the webinar does cut off officially. So go on. What have you got?
All right. Well, in addition to what Eleanor said, which is exactly right on, I would say one way in Denver that we're really using the GC Index is, as new employees come on board, we are quickly having them take the assessment so we can learn their proclivities, and then we're inserting that directly right into the team dynamics, into the Denver culture. And so this is very much a real-time process for us. Maybe one day we'll be reassessing the entire Denver office. The initial focus will be, you said in 12 months. I think what I'd like to see is have all 3 country programs in Africa have completed the GC index, so we can having those conversations about who is the Malawi office, what proclivities do they have, how are they showing up to do their work. Same with Uganda and Rwanda, and so we can connect that region to the Denver office better through the GC index methodology, and then eventually laying that framework for Latin America and India as well. So I'm looking forward to just speaking GCology across the globe and having a much more connected global organization.
That's very good. Thank you. I mean, as you know, we're very excited working with you guys. My fundamental belief is that whether you are a Fortune CEO or a kid in a developing country, you've got impact to make. So let's unleash that. Yeah, guys, thank you very, very much. Sorry about the slides. If you do want to get in contact, it's waterforpeople.org. If you want to get in contact with Mike and Eleanor and contribute to their mission. Stay tuned and follow our Twitter feeds and social media as to the work of how the GC is helping this great organization reach their goals of everyone forever. But for now, thank you very much, Eleanor. Thank you very much, Mike. Really enjoyed it, but now we do have to officially cut off. So thanks again, and we'll speak soon. Okay, Emma, anything from you?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much, and thank you for listening. Bye now. Bye-bye.